because it's the silly, stupid, fascinating, weird, wonderful. They're my people, and more often than not, they're the geeky people as well.
I mentioned Betamax. For anybody older, that's the old version of a video cassette. Video cassette is an old version of a DVD. A DVD is not set on the cloud. Hello, welcome to our first anniversary. My name is Mark, and this is
Becca!
Hello, folks. Hello, and welcome to a whole year of Faith and Geekery. And boy, has it changed over this last year from me just rabbiting in front of a camera to me. Oh no, wait, I'm just still rabbiting in front of a camera.
Wait a minute.
But we have the marvellous Becca joining us and has joined us many a time as our co-host.
Apparently,
How are you
I've
doing,
been
Becca?
turned into a cupcake today.
I
Does
didn't
anyone else
notice
think
that
that I
actually.
am actually a birthday cupcake?
Yes. I'm sure it might change and develop. We could swap over places as well if you like. So, for example, I could be a cupcake.
I think I did a
Fun.
better cupcake. It fits my head perfectly.
It does. It does. How have you been going there, Becca?
Good. I had a fantastic weekend at the Wholehearted Conference where I met some lovely geeky friends. Hello, Lydia, speaking of. And I am now just round the corner from Hyde Park, which I could get
Ooh.
very geeky about when it comes to MAYC London weekends and the things that we got up to in Hyde Park. So.
For non-Methodists, MAYCK, no, MAYC
It's like
weekend is a
it's like
Methodist thing.
version of YMCA.
Yes, yes, and face paint was involved at one point. And I think that's about it. So let's move on. Anything geeky that you've been getting on with? And folks, if you're tuning in, just please be in touch to share what you've been, what geekiness that you've been up to.
What have I been up to? I'm still animating, choreographing, programming little movers, which I will eventually post a picture of so that I can do a dance performance to Puppet on a String, actually.
Ah,
And I've got my this is on Second Life, I've got my avatar that'll look like a jointed marionette with the strings and
cool.
all the rest of it. And
Wow.
it's all complicated until you know what you're doing, and then it's just a lot of moving little bits. I'll
Oh,
have to do
fantastic.
a little video, and then you can see, and you'll go,
Yeah,
"Oh yes, Becca, yes, we now know what you're
I
talking
think I
about."
get the idea. I think I get the grasp of that. That's good. That's good. And I think I've been doing more 3D printing and bits and pieces like that, which I'm sure I'll bore people later with our
What are you
Geeks
3D
gallery.
printing? Oh, is it on the gallery? Is that what you're
Yes,
going to show us in pictures?
I'll mention it later. But I'm gonna. I think this is the end of my little chapter of doing these. There's a natural moment to stop, and so therefore I will just pause at this point and kind of get my sanity back before I might embark down the line on more 3D printing. But I'll explain that a little bit later. So yeah. So that is that. I've suddenly realised that we normally have our my order of things, and I have misplaced my order of things. We're going to have our geeky gallery a little bit later, towards the end of our episode again. But I think it should be time for some geeky news, I do believe. Are you ready for some geeky news?
Did you pass me over the geeky news that I was going to do?
No, I did not. So it
Oh,
might
you're doing
just
the
be
geeky news.
me.
As always.
Oh, completely professional, always. Welcome to Geeky News. The first thing to note that this Friday, that Apple are releasing their Vision Pro headset, which still looks a bit snorkely, but it is a staggering $3,500 in America. Yeah, and I've already heard that there's still some issues with their spatial keyboard. So when you're typing in 3D, they haven't quite mastered it yet. So people are saying, yeah, buy a Bluetooth keyboard. So like for $3,500, it doesn't feel as if all the niggles have been ironed out. Still in Apple news, iOS 18 is all set to roll out with new features, which we say new features, but I think basically there's much more stability coming in this new release. We're enabling more superior messaging, which basically means that you used to be able to kind of do iMessages between Apple devices. They're boasting that it's going to now work between Android phones as well as Apple, and there's other features along those lines, but those are the two main bits. Amazon slashing jobs at Twitch, not at Twitter, at Twitch, MGM, and Prime Video. And I think this is like this competition of trying to kind of make streaming work and be kind of cost effective and things like that. Because I've also heard rumors that Disney are also going to be streamlining Disney Plus, or there's a rumor that they're going to be letting off yet more employees, which must be really hard. Next, the Emmys took place last night, with The Bear, Succession, and Beef taking a lot of the trophies. And finally, to celebrate its first anniversary, Faith and Geekery are giving away a set of dice. And that is all for Geeky News.
Very
And there we go.
exciting. I
Yes.
actually listened to all of that as well.
Well, bless you. This seems to be a new update thing. Oh, sorry, 1 second. Lydia is very frustrated. Work and personal phone to send stuff in each other pockets. Okay, that seems to be it. Beef, yes, nothing to do with cows. Oh, win an award for being in an outstanding field. Very good, Lydia. Yeah, it just seems an interesting. Yeah, a lot of stuff going on. Really, Emmys good.
I
I
had
think.
not heard of any of those movies. I don't know where I've been to have missed.
Well, these are the series, aren't they? For the Emmys, are they not TV series Emmys?
Oh, I don't know.
Succession and The Bear I've heard of, not seen either of them. Interestingly, we've got Macaulay Culkin, I think, in the Succession, and I think he's won an award.
Okay.
Yeah, very interesting. But yeah, very bit worrying about streaming services and kind of not being able to make a profit and things like that. So we may be needing to hold on to our physical DVDs and box sets until we know that they are completely
Making a
viable.
profit unless they over-employed in the race to be the streaming service, and now they're cutting back in order to actually make the profit now that they're established companies. I don't know how that works.
I don't fully know either.
I know
So,
Netflix has gone up from £10 to 17.99. When did that even happen?
well, I think this is it. That I think initially what they tried to do is kind of saturate the market and trying to make sure that theirs was like the flagship. As in, I mean this broadly speaking across all of these kind of streaming services, and actually it seems that it's quite a competitive market still, and some people just aren't bothered. It's not the future necessarily; it's just not their thing. Oh, there's something about R. Kelly on here. I don't know what that means either. Who has a more famous stream than R. Kelly, though? Is it a reference about an R. Kelly song? But
I don't know.
as Angela said, love a DVD and CD, keeping it old school. Absolutely. But yeah, I think that's everything other than to mention Apple. But again, stability issues and kind of more superior messaging. Yeah. Vision Pro headset for those with that amount of money. And I'm sure it'll be a little bit more expensive here in the UK. I think I've seen people talk about that they can do hobbies around their home whilst watching TV, but I don't think that warrants a £3,500 dollar kind of label on it. But let's see what it brings, shall we? I'm sure it'll be some very cool spatial interaction. I think that is everything in regards to geeky news. Unless you've got anything else to say, Becca.
Not today. Although I don't update my phone anymore, my iPhone. It feels like the same thing as it did the last phone. So I'm waiting until something magical comes out, and then I might.
Yeah, fair enough. Fair enough. We should mention, actually, I forgot to mention at the very beginning of the show, we're having slightly sound issues, which is why we're sounding a little bit more sedate and a little bit more laid back. It's just so
Yes,
that we don't
we're
have
slightly
feedback
worried
issues.
that we're going to, yeah.
If we're too loud, we might just kind of cause more frustration, especially for the podcast listeners. But we are not alone in our birthday celebrations. We have got a guest with us tonight, and that is Sam. And I'm going to bring Sam up now. Hello, Sam.
Hello, Mark.
Hello.
Hello, Becca.
Hello. It is a pleasure
Hello,
for
welcome.
you to join us. Especially this is your kind of new into the kind of community, new into here. So thank you for daring to step forward and to be part of the conversation.
Yeah, that's fine. Yeah, I'm happy to be here.
Fantastic,
Fabulous.
fantastic. Is there anything that geeky that you've been up to recently, or unless you're going to mention about the thing that you're coming to talk about?
No, I'm not. I'm not technical, but I do like some geeky things, sort of along the lines of Star Trek, Lord of the Rings, sort of things that I do for entertainment. And my main hobby is writing science fiction fantasy.
Cool.
Fabulous.
Sounds very cool.
I'm looking forward to talking about that in a bit.
Okay.
Yeah. I've just realised a little message has come into my, well, I say it into my ear as if it's been talked. Yes, I've realised that the person was a troll talking about rude things about R. Kelly. So jolly good. Thank you that we've established that. Okay, so I think before we kind of talk about sci-fi stuff, I think it's a nice moment to recognise that we are celebrating our first anniversary, and so I just thought I'd bring up a little slide briefly to kind of talk about before we go into our quiz. That's what we'd normally do, wouldn't we? But we're going
Yes.
to do the anniversary stuff first, and so I'm going to
Okay.
bring up this slide. Oh, we've lost. One moment. Is that better? So we can see things. This is just a quick slide I just thought I'd throw up because these are all the sort of subjects and things that we've covered over the last year. Some of it started off with me just in front of the camera, as I said at the very beginning. We've done Mario Kart and all that kind of stuff, and a real frustration of actually physically Lego building in front of the camera. That was tedious, especially when I lost a piece or three, and I had to go rooting around for it. So let's not revisit that one anytime soon. But yeah, I think I hope, yeah, I think it's just been an opportunity of this last year to kind of explore geekiness in its definition, to explore kind of the ways of which we can be, the ways in which we can do stuff to have downtime, chill, kind of do geeky things, as well as sorry, no cows. I've realised that, Lydia. I was literally
Sorry,
going.
Lydia.
I was literally going on the titles of the YouTube channel, and I realised that there was about 6 or 7 that I just didn't bother with any titles in. So I'm sorry. We should have mentioned cows, and cows have been mentioned quite thoroughly throughout. But yeah, there's all these kind of ways of which we can kind of engage with the world, engage with kind of being human, being kind of just relaxing and spending time to master our skills, or just to spend time, just to kind of have downtime or otherwise. And so, yeah, these are all kind of moments where we can share. And yeah, I think it's. I think that and also kind of inspires us to talk about ways in which all of these sort of things and more, including cows, can enable us to kind of reflect on our own lives, on our own abilities, as well as kind of how we engage with the world around us. And yeah, so is that a little bit better layout? Any thoughts, Becca?
I think it does. It shows how broad this has been. You know, you think just the crafty bit alone, that's so broad in terms of the different things that you can do and create. Partly because it makes people money, but partly because people have this diverse interest in what they can do. I think, you know, more often than not, what people show on the Discord group are the different things they're making. That geekiness kind of manifests not in the cerebral stuff that we end up doing in chatting about it. It's actually in the doing, in the creating, and the playing with it. You know, people are engaging because it's fun rather than it's an intellectual exercise. And I love seeing that each week is different people's manifestation of their geekiness in some weird and wonderful way. Why
Yeah,
we love our people.
yeah, definitely, definitely. Sam, anything to add, or happy just to be?
Just looking at that gives me an idea of what you're considering as geekiness, which is a wider range than I thought. The episode I did catch was the tabletop RPG episode that you did some months ago. So yeah, that was interesting.
Oh, fantastic. I was going to say, as somebody newish to this, then I can understand, or kind of just revisiting. We're just appreciative that you're coming along onto the show, and we'll come on to your subject in a little while. Shall we move on to our quiz? Is that all right? Let's do that. Right. Sam, I realise you're new to this kind of format of it. You don't have pen and paper if you want to, but there will be encouragement to kind of see what answers you got. It's my turn this week, and there is a little bit of a heads up because in a fortnight's time, we have got our All We Canuary, All the Quiz You Can, which is our charity evening of where we're going to be. It's going to just be purely all quiz for the whole hour, hosted by Becca and myself, unless we can get others to join us to be quiz team leaders or otherwise. But for tonight, I have 5 questions for you, and I'll run through the questions and then see what we how we can kind of see what answers you get at the end. So, without any spoilers, and people don't comment any answers, that's cheating. That will be cheating, and you'll be marked down. Question number 1. Are you ready?
Yes.
Jolly good.
Yes.
Can you? This is very much 3D printer themed, I'm afraid. Can you name any of the popular materials used in domestic 3D printing? So, name any of the popular materials used in 3D domestic 3D printing. Okay, should we move on?
Yes.
Question 2, a little bit of a sideline here. What animal is on the front of Coleman's mustard? This is UK based. Technically,
What animal?
this is from Norwich.
Okay, I know
Don't,
what it is then.
but don't
I
let
think.
that confuse you. Should we move on? Question number 3. What's the difference between comic books and graphic novels? I'll ask that again. What's the difference between comic books and graphic novels? And this has been courtesy of a very in-depth study of a Google search about 5 minutes before we went live.
Okay.
Question number 4. And to be honest, one of these questions really should be how you pronounce this properly. But what are the main ingredients to the traditional scone or scone recipe? As in, what typically would you put in to make your scones or your scones? I think I'd pronounce it scone.
The Queen would have pronounced it scone, if that helps.
Not sure. And finally, I'm just going to bring something up. Can you name this character? The one on the left.
Okay, interesting.
This is from...
And his magic torch.
Oh, I mean, that's a bit of a giveaway, isn't it?
No, only if you know what that is.
From the 70s, folks.
80s. Surely.
First 1977.
Wow. Okay.
Courtesy of Google. Other search engines are available. Okay. How do we feel that we have done with those 5 questions before I give the answers?
I don't know. I've got 1, maybe 2, maybe 3.
Lydia's saying that you can hear me twice. I'm trying to be a bit quieter again. Ooh.
Oh no.
Cody is saying 0. Oh no. Can you still
Sorry,
hear me like
Cody.
this? Hopefully you can. Yes, good. Okay, so question number 1: what materials are used in domestic 3D printing? Any answers to offer?
Plastic filament.
I was going to say, Sam, have you got any ideas?
3D printers, I don't know anything about. Sorry, no, not a clue.
You don't have to feel bad not for knowing. Lydia's put PLA. Yes, I'll accept. PETG, PLA Plus, ABS, nylon, TPU, all of that stuff is more than
I
welcome.
think plastic filament definitely covers at least one of those things.
I'll let you have it.
Oh, thank you.
So question number 2: what animal is on the front of Coleman's mustard?
A canary.
I'm afraid not. We've got yeah, I can still hear
Bitterly
myself
disappointing.
twice.
I don't know then.
I thought it was a cow.
I would give you that. It is a bull. And in particular, it's a Durham bull, because I just saw a news article earlier on today that mustard making is returning to the city of Durham, because that's where it was first invented or kind of discovered, whilst though several years earlier, or however many centuries earlier, I think it was a monastic thing with some sort of form of mutard or anyway, I'll stop boring you, but it was a Durham bull on the front for recognizing its heritage, but they obviously make it in Norwich. Question number 3: what is the difference between comic books and graphic novels? Should I just launch with the answer to save any?
I think I know, but I'm not sure. I've certainly read both. Is it to do with the dialogue? That in a graphic novel there is text, not just as a dialogue, whereas comics it's more the story carried by dialogue. Bubbles? No?
Yeah, I don't think it is. I think I actually have got a couple of examples, and I was leaning towards the I think it's the Wikipedia entry that comic books are serialized stories and are more likely to be shorter and are likely to go over many years, whereas graphic novels tend to be much longer, kind of in themselves, and that they may only be kind of one or two books. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So they're much more kind of a large volume of like a one storyline or two storylines across one big kind of publication. Yes, Lydia, I would give you a point. Question number 4.
I suppose novels are bigger. That kind of covers it, doesn't it?
Yeah. I'm not always trying to trip you up with these questions, by the way. What are the main ingredients of typical scone or scone?
Flour, butter, sugar?
Yes, I would also accept baking powder and milk.
Yeah, it does probably need milk and baking powder. Okay.
Should we move on?
That's half a
Finally. Yeah. Oh, Lydia's put cherries. Yes. I'm being in a very gracious mood. It must be.
Not.
Yeah, no, yeah. Just as if somebody said cheese, because you can get cheese scones. Yep, exactly, Lydia.
I love cherry scones. I call them scones, sorry.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely you're allowed to.
Yeah, I like them plain, and then you add your jam. You add your sweetness separately.
I think it depends on the mood, and also a warmed scone or scone, I think, is also nice. And then you butter. Anyway, I'm just making people hungry now. Apologies. Points all around. Points all around. It's our birthday episode. It kind of ruins the competition, though, doesn't it? We're not even going to go down the jam or cream first debate. We're going to move swiftly on. So
jam and cream.
Finally, who was that character? I'm going to have to bring it back up again now.
That was Jamie and his magic torch.
Yeah. Jamie and his magic torch. Faster and faster down the helter skelter. Jamie and his magic torch. I always wanted one, and I was always ashamed. It's always sad that there just wasn't. It didn't exist in real life. But also glad that there wasn't a policeman who'd eat his truncheon. I don't know what that meant. Anyway, well done, Lydia. You got 4 points. Fantastic. Sharon's put clotted cream, by the way. Again, we're not going to go down that argument of the scone thing. I regret mentioning the scone thing. And I think on that note, we are going to move on. So, Sam, would you like to share a little bit about your hobby, please?
Right. Well, I've been writing for a while, but within the last couple of years, I've been getting involved with having coaching to actually get my writings into some sort of structure. And I have sort of finished a first novel, which is in the process of being checked and everything. And I've started very recently on a second one.
Oh, well done.
They're a
so
bit,
what makes it science fiction? What is it that makes it different to a non-science fiction book? That was not a well thought out question.
I was going to say they're not really falling into any exact genres, because my books are a blend of both science fiction and fantasy in the sort of way that Tolkien and C.S. Lewis wrote fantasy. So mine use the science fiction part mostly as a portal for my characters to get to a magical world. So they arrive in spaceships, and then they go on in both cases it's a quest. So they go on a quest once they're there. So that is the fantasy part of it.
Oh, I see.
Wow, cool. And how long do they normally take? Or I say normally, how long has the first one taken to kind of
So the
to be
first one
birthed?
I started on the 1st of April 2020 in lockdown. I was currently working in the NHS, so I didn't have some of the troubles that some people have. I was still in a routine, but obviously there were some restrictions that I, like everybody else, couldn't go out as much. And I just sort of thought, I've had some of these ideas from way back when I used to do the role-playing games. So I had sort of ideas of sort of loose storylines and a world. And I sort of started writing and creating that into a novel. So I finished it just before Christmas.
Fantastic. Can you? I don't know whether my internet dropped out when you said what year you started it.
Oh,
I don't know.
2020.
2020. Oh, fantastic.
Yes.
Oh, well,
So
that's very
as
good.
lockdown started,
Yeah.
I'm hoping to sort of write the next one in a shorter time. I know what I feel like I know a bit more about what I'm doing now.
And is it the sort of thing that you can kind of, as you kind of develop your style and your, I want to say trade, but like as you hone in your skills, does it come easier to? I feel as if I want to use a farming analogy of kind of dig your, you have like is it easier to kind of
Yeah,
to kind of
plough my furrow
yeah
or something. Yes, it is. I was very much flailing around, not really knowing what I was doing to start with, and I very much have a plan now of a sort of, I know how I'm going to structure my novel and how I'm going to sort of proceed with writing it, even though I don't know the full story yet.
Oh, fantastic. And did you find that the your role play kind of game stuff that kind of inspired you, or did you kind of continue to kind of cultivate kind of ideas that started back there, or was it just the general idea of it that kind of enabled you to kind of explore that as a literacy piece?
Well, I've picked out some of the role-playing things. I've been inspired by other films and books, and even songs. There's a number of things that influenced me, but I would say that the bedrock of it was probably the role-playing games, and certainly for my world, that definitely originated in being a game master for a role-playing game.
That was going to be my next question, whether you were a player or whether you were a games master. So yeah, so definitely, so you're behind the screen and
Yeah.
oh,
So
fantastic.
I did mostly a lot of playing as a character in a group, but I also did some of the game master, sort of dungeon master type of role.
Yeah, because I hadn't realised I'm only a recent kind of DM and mainly for my family, but I find it quite fascinating how much you can how much down the rabbit hole you can go with it, and kind of you're having to think outside of the box sometimes, working about how the world exists, how this kind of how your realm kind of works, and kind of what is the norm there. How do people kind of make livings and all this kind of you could almost think about whole kind of ecosystems and histories in order to just facilitate somebody sitting in an inn and having a
Yes.
conversation about some players coming together and going on a quest down into a dungeon or otherwise. So I can definitely
Yes.
see how those sort of skills are transferable, and especially with, I'm just trying to think of like the likes of I want to say famous DMs, games masters like Matt Mercer, like Matt Colville, other Matts are available, but they kind of have a definite kind of writing background or kind of ways in which they're kind of creative. So I can definitely see how that is a transferable skill from
Yeah.
one into the other. So that sounds fantastic. Is there anything else that you'd like to share about your actual particular story, or is it all hush hush, or is there like a little is there a little glimpse or like the back of the?
Yeah, I'm hoping to get it published sort of late winter or early spring. Until it's out, I don't really want to say too much about
Yeah.
it,
No,
but
that's
I'll
good.
certainly come back on here and talk about it once it's out there.
Oh,
That would
absolutely.
be very
Please
cool.
do so. Yeah.
Published author, Mark. Oh,
Oh yeah, absolutely. That would be fantastic. That'd be fantastic. Well, yeah,
So,
please do share that as well. Um,
Sam, what would you say your takeaway from the coaching process to get you to the point of kind of saying, yes, this is a book I'm ready to take to publishers? What would
there were
your takeaway from that be?
two big things I've got from it. One was putting it into a structure and not having it rambling off. With the role-playing games, you want it to ramble off. You want diversions and things all over the place.
Yeah,
With a novel, you need a structure, and that's one of the things I got. And I also got somebody to read over it. What we call an alpha reader, somebody to have a first glance and say, this isn't working or this is working. So my novel is now at beta readers, which are sort of just
okay,
people who are critiquing the novel.
yeah,
But it's already been glanced over. Oh, no, it's been read, but over a period of time. It's been read by somebody who has said, don't do this or do that. So that was really helpful.
yeah.
do you
Thank
have
you.
to have a thick skin to go through this process of looking after your baby, kind of to make sort of like, hey, back off, or are you open to the process?
I think you have to be open, but then there are certain things where you sort of think, I don't want to change that because I love that. And you have to sort of work through about whether it really isn't working and whether it should be changed. And quite often the alpha reader, the coach knows what they're doing. So you just have to accept that I don't know everything, I don't know anything, and then take their advice, really.
Mm,
Yeah. And again, I think that when you're talking about kind of that kind of expansive and you can kind of sprawl across, I think that is, as you say, about the whole kind of fantasy world and wanting to kind of convey as much lore and kind of perspective as possible. You can kind of get lost in it a bit. And I'm going to say something really harsh, and I'm going to get heckled from near, far, and everywhere. Is that when I was reading Tolkien, Lord of the Rings, I really struggled because the amount of detail that they kind of go into is so strong and is so long. I lost concentration even in the first chapter
Yeah.
but I mean it's really lovely. The amount of detail was fantastic,
mm,
but for me I'm just there kind of going, I'm getting bored. I know it's a lovely I know it's a lovely landscape, but I'm really needing to push through this. Can I skip forward a chapter?
Yeah.
Because I feel as if, but I mean I know. Oops, sorry. I know that he was the kind of the forefather of fantasy writing, and I'm sure there are people before that. Are there? But
He is,
I think he
yeah,
was
he's
the
regarded as the father of the
yeah.
fantasy genre. Yeah.
Yeah, and so maybe he needed like an alpha and beta reader just to kind of bring him in line a little bit. Uh, maybe not, but
Oh, you're on dodgy territory, aren't you,
I
Mark?
know I am indeed, But that is my personal opinion, and but yeah, no, I can definitely see how. Yeah, when you're passionate for a place, for a community, for a city or a world, you definitely kind of you've got to pick your battles, don't you, of what you are
Yes.
happy to let go of,
Yeah.
what is still kind of core to it, and I guess also if you're investing in this system, in this kind of process, then you've also got to kind of, I don't want to say bend to it, but kind of humble yourself to listen to to those that have gone ahead of you to kind of
Yes,
say, actually, you know what,
definitely.
yeah, I get that. Oh, bless
Yeah.
you.
And Tolkien is regarded as being the first and as you say, the father. But modern readers do not want all that information, and sort of new writers in the genre are advised to sort of stick to the plot and not sort of put so much information that's interesting but not relevant.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I think you find a few authors do sort of a few books and then a background thing. The Robert Jordan Wheel of Time books has got at least two, that I know of, background books alongside the massive 14 long, thick doorstep fantasy books that is part of that Wheel of Time. So all those books and all that stuff in there, and he's still got background stuff that are not in the novels.
Yeah. And I guess that's it, isn't it? That if you've kind of invested in that place and it occupies you, I think if it occupies your mind and you kind of try and piece the things together, and whether that's a visual process of storyboards and otherwise, or just kind of that whole on the ball kind of creating a world, universe, whatever in your head, then I guess you do kind of play out how they interact and how things process, and you know what has led that kind of place to be that sort of kind of and I think I would just be really fascinated in how the author does that, you know, of how you kind of go on that journey and you kind of have to kind of go through that creative process just to to kind of pick your own to pick your own battles within yourself, let alone before you get it to an alpha or beta reader. Does that sort of process come easy, or is it very direct and you're kind of going, you know, this is the way it's going to go?
To me, the world building is fun. I love doing that, and I know an awful lot more about my world than I've actually put into the story. So, but yeah, for some people, they struggle with the world building. But yeah, I love it.
And do you feel that you kind of want to be that stuff that you're holding back, is that the sort of stuff that you're wanting to then put into the next book, or are you just going to lightly, just like our sprinkles on a little birthday cake, are you just likely to kind of just kind of sprinkle a little bit more into the next book and into the next book and just see how it goes? So I've assumed that there might be a third.
Well, trilogies are a thing in fantasy. Yeah. Yes, I think sort of more will come out as I put my characters into a situation, and I've got this world and know how it's going to, what it's all about. More would come out in the story, I think, as I tell more and more stories, assuming I carry on.
No, fantastic. That sounds really good. Sounds really, really good. Is there anything?
I have another question about your writing process. So, you said you enjoy the world building bit. When you write your plot, is that something that you do as a, you know, when you see a writer in a TV thing, they're often on a typewriter, and they just kind of type away, and the novel seems to emerge magically as a linear thing that, you know, they're just making it up as they go along. Each chapter follows one after the other. Is that a process that you follow, or do you do something more kind of meta, over the top, where you have a bigger story arc, and then do you see
Yeah,
the direction I'm
there
going?
are writers of fantasy. We tend to fall into one of three groups: a plotter, what they call a pantser. You write by the seat of your pants, which is what you're describing. It all just comes flowing
Yeah,
out,
flows out.
or a plantser, which is somewhere between the two. And I think I'm very much somewhere between the two. So I will plot out. I usually start off with a beginning, how I want it to be, and then I sort of think how I want to be at the end. So I usually write an ending as the next thing that I do, and I plot out how I want them to get there. And sometimes sort of I've done lots of rewrites. Sometimes it's gone off track and I've had to either bring it back or go with it. But I like to have that plan of what will happen during the course of a novel before I start writing out all the details and the dialogue and everything like that.
Interesting.
Sorry, I was trying to add a little banner, but it doesn't seem to be wanting to play ball. I think Becca's got control of it. I was just going to put a little banner saying, "Are you a plotter, a pantser, or a plantser?" I'll put it in the comments instead. Yeah, that sounds fascinating, because I think is it Neil Gaiman who talks about kind of just throwing everything at and hoping that something sticks. And it's just like, right then, throwing it and just see what goes, throwing it and see what goes again. But yes, a plotter.
Yeah, I think he is very much a pantser, but then he will rewrite to make it very smooth once he's got the story down. Yeah, I've heard quite a few of his interviews and things like that.
Yeah. I think that creative process is absolutely fascinating. How people take story and turn it into something that other people can then journey along with. And the fact that people can do that in such different ways. It's really interesting.
Yeah, I like to have a structure to build on, and then I don't tend to get so lost. Whereas I don't think I could really do it Neil Gaiman's way of it all just pouring out. I sort of need to know where I'm going.
Interesting. I'd love to see inside that mind.
Wow. Is there anything else to share about kind of sci-fi fantasy writing, or are we wanting to schmooze on into Geeky Gallery?
I'm good. You can get on with the next part of it.
Just wanted to give you an opportunity.
Do you have a third in the back of your head, Sam?
Yes, I probably do.
Okay.
Very good.
And do you write that down, or is that kind of fermenting in the recesses of your brain?
I probably don't like to admit to myself that I do, because I sort of think, well, I ought to get on with writing book 2 before I think about book 3. But yes, I have to admit, in the back of my head, I do sort of have an idea of, where it would all eventually go.
Yeah.
Very good.
Thank you.
I guess I should ask one last question actually about. Can I ask about? Where does it fit into faith? Does it actively nestle in with kind of your faith, or are you happy that it's actually just over to one side and that you will dip into it or dip out of it to yourself, or do you compartmentalize it completely?
Right. Oh, that's a really good question.
Sorry.
There is nothing in my book that is against my faith, if you see what I mean. I wouldn't write anything that was too spicy, I think that's the word, or that would have anything that I think would go against God or anything like that. But I don't know whether some people would criticize this, some Christians would criticize this, but I do in the book have a monotheistic religion that it does plays no part in it, but the priests in it are very much like a Christian priest, sort of Christian minister would be, and there is nothing that the sort of God of the story, Otho, is there's nothing in that somebody could say, well, that's not a Christian point of view.
Yeah.
And
So
I think
kind
in the back of my mind, God created the universe, and if there were people on other planets, he would be their God, and they might not call him Yahweh or the Lord or something. And the Otho, who doesn't play any part in the story, could easily be Jesus, God the Father.
So it kind of complements a monotheistic kind of creation, and so therefore it doesn't kind of cut across it or argue or kind of is disrespectful or otherwise. So
That's
that
right,
sounds good. I suddenly just thought that we've not kind of delved into that aspect of it, but I'm just aware, and for example, and I've seen this more in and recent viewers and listeners would have been aware that I've been making my way through some of these kind of D&D podcasts and reading against the grain of where they deal with deities, with cults, with religious leaders. I'm now kind of going, oh, this is really fascinating. What part their god or gods, small g, kind of plays in their storytelling, in their belief systems, but greater than the religion, but kind of how they believe their world to act and be, and how kind of clerics and it's just really fascinating to see how, whilst none of them would sort of talk about openly about faith and about religion, it's just interesting of how there's like a subtle message kind of sewn throughout their story, and I've got to the end of one of them, and I won't, not any spoilers, but they were offered deity status to say you could become gods, and each one of them turned it down, and they sort of said, yeah, well, we've moved on from God. And I was just like, interesting. Interesting as a society that that it seems to reflect a wider society perspective, but they are not of a faith podcast or anything. They just see themselves as a bog standard kind of, well, hopefully higher than standard kind of podcast for D&D players. But I just find it a really interesting observation of how God can be a tool or can make this, or how we perceive God to be, can kind of portray a perspective even if we're not actively doing it. But I find that really fascinating. Sorry, I didn't mean to just kind of lampoon you at the end. But no, I just find it really fascinating of what do we say about kind of creation? What do we say about a godlike role? And it sounds as if you've really kind of thought it through and kind of aligned it, but not kind of gone over the top with it. I mean, I think I've forgotten the chappie's name. I've read a few books where I've kind of gone, you're a Christian, because they've kind of gone down the, well, C.S. Lewis did this way, so let's do this, and let's put a really good sacrifice in this, and let's have a nice conversation with God, which is all good. But I think sometimes if you've kind of been brought up with it, it's almost like that, an oversaturation, where it could be a bit of a danger to kind of go down. Anyway, I'm rambling, but thank you, Sam. Can I ask you, have you explored your kind of author name? Is it just going to be, or have you got a certain author name? Or
I'm using my maiden name. My husband's fine with that. I've been married for 22 years, and my husband is fine with me using my maiden name, and it's just so that I don't know that there isn't any confusion or anything, that if it refers to I'm publishing as Sam J. Paddison, which is my maiden name, and it's just so that anything that comes to me from that is obviously to do with being an author.
Oh, fantastic. Nice.
Nice.
Well, so if we see say that again, Sam J.
Sam
Paddison.
J. Paddison.
Paddison.
Yeah, yes,
Well,
and
if
it's
we,
also not as a common name
yeah,
as my married name.
yeah. Well,
Fabulous.
thank you. Well, when we see that on the bookshelves, we know that we saw it here first. So bless you. Thank you. We're now going to kind of segue into our last feature of the night, if that's okay. Unless Becky, you got anything else to add? You're looking very
No, no,
ponderous. No, that's cool. We're just going to come to our little kind of geeky gallery, which is I should mention just a brief plug that if you're catching up with us later at another time, shout out to David, who had to work tonight, but was looking forward to the 1 year anniversary. But basically, you can find us on Discord, where we share things and just kind of, hopefully kind of encourage one another and find kind of bit of community and opportunity to share and to be on there. Just requires a download and just to clutter up your devices and things like that. But we also have a little geeky gallery where we invite people to share. So I'm just going to bring it up here, and I'm going to have to remember for our podcast listeners to describe. The very first slide is I'm being a little bit cheeky. This is my own stuff. I wanted to share first of all my son's collection of Rubik's kind of cubes, devices, and all kinds of things. I'm sure not all of them are actually official Rubik's stuff, but it's basically a basket of all his various devices, all of his various cubes and dodecahedrons and pyramids and things that you can kind of twist and shape. What I'm really grateful for is a solving app that you can now get on your phone, and that you can tap what all the colors are and where the colors are, and you'll go, you can solve this in 64 moves. I'll show you. And you can kind of do it, and so therefore you can solve them. I'm fairly sure my 9-year-old at one point started buying Rubik's cubes because he couldn't solve the last one. So we've come on a journey, just slightly obscured, because I didn't ask Becky, but my daughter has been sewing, so she's really been getting into that, and she was really excited this week, so much so that she couldn't go to bed because she was so excited about her sewing project. And so her mum has been kind of supporting her in the using the sewing machine and all this kind of stuff. Also to mention, I've had an issue with my 3D printer this week, so I had to do a clean out of a 3D printer, which for most people is very boring. However, in order to clean out a 3D printer nozzle, you've got to heat it up to 200 degrees in order for the molten plastic, so the plastic to become molten again, which means that you have to, the only way that you can detach bits and replace nozzles and things is dealing with very hot metal. And so you're suddenly having to kind of use all the apparatus and not try and burn yourself. But I managed to do it after lots of, the projects went very wispy. Anything that I was printing, it was almost like material because the plastic was so thin. Anyway, I won't bore you anymore. But the end product is on the far right hand side, which is a hexagon. Sorry, the third picture is me with kind of a spanner and an adjustable wrench around a nozzle enclosure of a 3D printer. But the last picture is of one of my hexagons from the Settlers of Catan. So this is me kind of upgrading my set, and this is a little desert hexagon. And so I've kind of 3D printed it, painted it, and then added a layer of sand, or technically 2 layers of sand. So that's what I've been up to. And I think I'm just awaiting magnets, and so I'm going to have a last session of adding magnets into the hexagons at the end of the week, and then I'm going to rest and relax from that, because I think I've made something like 40 or 50 of these hexagons and painted them all and put them all together and super glued my fingers together and all that kind of stuff. So moving on from that, one from David from Specky Geek. He's been lino cutting again, and I think this is quite whether it's a Holy Spirit thing or a phoenix out of the ashes sort of thing, but the really vibrant colours of a bird kind of flying out of the flames, which I think the first one on the right hand side is a bit of it was his very first iteration of it, and he's just kind of tidied it up. But I think it looks fab, doesn't it, Becca? Oh, sorry, you're on
I
mute.
love it. I love the colour gradient as well that he's managed to get on the red into the orange going up to. I think that looks really effective.
It does look really cool, doesn't
And
it?
also, there's something about that image that we have kind of story around Holy Spirit, but then we also have fantasy around Phoenix, and it almost doesn't matter what that image is because you
Yeah.
find truth and meaning in how you perceive it as the viewer, regardless of what the artist actually meant. And I think that's why art and imagery is so helpful for helping us understand deeper things of what's going inside, that invite you onto a journey of what you see and what truth you're taking away from it. And I think that's sometimes why I like the simplicity that you can get with lino cutting, but also with imagery around either fantastic beasts, or some of our analogy for understanding spirit. So yeah, I like that.
That's really good. And I think this is the last slide. This is Tom just showing more of his tempestuous scions and the sisters of silence. I remembered to put in the little label this time, and so he's just working through putting all these figurines together, and I think waiting for some base toppers to arrive before he progresses on to the next stages of build before painting. So that's really cool. I think that's it isn't. It isn't all of it. Of course, it isn't. You referenced at the very beginning the conference that you'd been on, where Becca you'd seen. Sorry, you can explain that if you wanted to.
Yeah, so Lydia Moo, and I happened to meet up at the Wholehearted conference, somewhere in Stoke. I'm trying to think where it actually was. Lydia might be actually able to actually tell me. And we had a weekend of not really knowing what to fully expect. It allowed people to just come with their stories, find meaning in other people's stories without it being too structured, I think. It was really, really good. Really lovely time. And there were a few people that I then met as a result of that are interested in being part of Faith and Geekery, because you find your people and you meet people that are into the same things, who want to join a community of people that find meaning and truth in the way that we do. So I think it's a discipline and an approach more than it's a specific set of criteria that you need in order to belong. And there was a lot of stuff about belonging and how important it is to be authentically yourself, but that often comes with an invitation to belong. Um, and that belonging doesn't have to change who you are. Um, and I think we had a great talk from Yaz, who's been on the Hope and Anchor podcast, about how often churches ask you to behave and then believe, and then you can belong. And actually, transformation comes when it starts with the belonging, and then the belief comes, and then behavior change results as a result of your full acceptance and being authentic self. So some really, really lovely things to reflect on from that.
Fantastic, thank you. And there's a little picture there of Lydia kind of doing a mandala as well, which I think was part of the weekend, maybe. Don't know.
No,
Was
I
it not?
think
It was
she
just
said that
oh,
subsequently.
fantastic. So that's like a blue and dark blue and white one. So there we go. So I think that is our time. We've just gone over the hour. Just a little, I know I gave a little nod to our competition, but that is basically going across our social media platforms. And so if you want a set of dice, UK mainland only, I'm afraid, or UK, whatever I can afford on the postage, but we'll just kind of United Kingdom only, I'm afraid, folks. But yeah, like, comment, share, and all that kind of stuff, and join the following. I think it's just also an opportunity just to explore which one of our social media platforms is working, which aren't. I'm feeling quite stretched across all of these different platforms, of whether it's Blue Sky, Threads, X, Instagram, Facebook, and all that kind of gubbins. So yeah, just kind of like, share, and just spread the word, really. If you like this podcast, if you like this stream, then do kind of give it a bit of a thumbs up and share it around. But we've come to the end of our time tonight. Again, thanks, Sam. Thank you for joining
thank
us.
you so much, Sam.
Thank you for talking to me.
Bless you. I'm going to drop you off the screen now. So goodbye. And Becca, yeah, anything else left to say, or otherwise, as you return to the cupcake? And yeah, anything else left to say?
I think it's just lovely. I think it's worth saying to people watching and who are going to watch it back, if you've got ideas about the things you want to talk about, things you want to hear about, but particularly about the quiz, which is on the 30th of January, and we want as many people to take part and join in as we can get. So we'll see how that goes. I'm thinking what we need are two teams, Mark, and we have panel people in charge,
Yeah.
team leaders. So if you want to be a quiz team leader, we'll then host it. That would be great.
Yeah, no, that'd be
However that
fantastic, wouldn't it? That'll be good. That'll be good. And yeah, I think we can have up to 10 people. So let's we can always give that a bit of a challenge. And let's aim high. Let's aim high. I'm not
Aim
sure if we
high.
are around next week though.
I don't know.
I'm not, so it depends. But folks, we'll just let you know in the normal way.
If we've got
But
someone who wants to come and have a chat with me next week, then we'll be around. If not, we'll be back the following week.
yeah, so we'll go big and bold with our quiz, which is raising money. And there's no obligation, but we'd want to encourage you to raise money. There's a Just Giving page and all that kind of gubbins, which we'll share, which you
share
should
the
be already
links
shared
in the chat.
already. And yeah, folks, thank you for joining us. Thanks again to Sam. And yeah, it just goes to show of how our creativity can start in one geekiness and kind of mooch along into other areas. So it's been really fascinating, and we wait to hear how and wait to have Sam returning to share with us her publication and the next. So God bless you, folks. I hope you can kind of geek safe, and yeah, until the next time, goodbye.
Yes, to the next year.
To the next year.